G'day beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at another rework idea, this time for Serath. Before we get into the video, like usual, I'd like to start by saying that when I do these rework videos, I look through the character's history, look at the community members' suggestions. In some cases I'll agree with community members and go along with their ideas with perhaps some minor tweaks. In some cases I will not, but I may provide feedback. Any feedback that is given is not an invitation to ridicule that person for their idea. Don't condone that kind of behavior. I think if we're all civil and listen to each other's ideas, that can potentially help to create something great. As far as my videos go, my intention is to be, in most cases, inventive as possible, and also be a little bit out there in certain instances. But in others, I'll be keeping the majority of the heroes' kits pretty much similar to what they used to be because I feel that it actually suits them. We know that passives are going to exist, so I'm going to include a passive for every hero, and I like the idea of having quests, so I'll be suggesting quests for each of the 3 standard abilities and for their passive. Quests will be an objective that's given to an ability like hitting X amount of heroes with that ability, and upon completion will grant you a bonus to that ability. Players will choose the quest for an active ability that they want to receive at the start of a match, and hopefully have some sort of quest tracker on their UI, as well as having every hero's chosen quest visible on the scoreboard, so you can see what your allies and enemies are going for. So just to recap, you have a quest for your passive every single time, but for your 3 basic abilities, you choose that at the start of the match, and then that is shown to everyone in some way, shape or form, maybe on the scoreboard, so they can see what you're working towards. Although I feel that with enough tweaking, all quests could be made available to each hero throughout a game, I would like to see a system where, we're choosing one, adding an extra way to tailor your build towards the way you play, or potentially countering the enemy team. So it's in my opinion that those quests should be difficult but attainable, and should also have strong rewards that are balanced with each other. However, I'm not opposed to just giving every hero 1 quest instead of 4, maybe just pick an ability and that always has a quest for it, that's fine. And I'm also aware that some of the suggestions that I come up with may not be possible due to tracking issues. With that said, let's get started. So Serath is a hyper carry that in my opinion is a little bit tough to balance, taking into account how well her basic attack damage and her attack speed scales. Making too many big changes to a kit can easily make her too strong. So I decided that I wasn't going to change much of a base kit. She will have all the same abilities, but we need to add a passive, adjust some stats on her ultimate to suit the passive, and work out some quests for her. Before we do that though, I'd like to point out that I am an advocate for melee carries not being in the duo lane, not being in the safe lane. I much prefer them to jungle, because when they're in the safe lane, say if you have a melee carry and also have a melee support, and you're against a ranged carry and a ranged support, you're at an inherent disadvantage, and I don't agree that they should be in that lane. I am an advocate of people like Serath or Wukong being junglers. Sure, they will be weak early on and have slow clear times in the jungle, but as they hit mid to late game and have a decent build going, they are monsters at clearing jungle and snowball very quickly. They also tend to have great mobility with a bit of soft CC to help them with ganking, so they do actually suit that quite well. So when it comes to a basic attack, I think it needs to have pretty strong scaling, so I would suggest somewhere around 1 to 1.1. It's been a while since individual basic attack scaling was a thing, but I think she was at about 1 previously, so maybe just keep it around there. As far as a passive goes, I wanted to go with something that synergized with her ultimate, like increasing burn damage and duration, but I felt that it was better to go for something that would always be working instead of just while she was in a demonic form. So I settled on something that would actually help her against jungle minions and bosses in a standard form, while also buffing her demonic form against enemy heroes. Keep in mind that I didn't put too much thought into the numbers for a passive, as that's best left to the balance team. So a passive is, and to be honest, I couldn't come up with a good name, so I just went with Judgment. While in an angel form, successive attacks on jungle minions or bosses increases Serath's attack speed by 0.5% for 3 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. Duration is reset on basic attacks within that 3 seconds. While in demonic form, successive basic attacks on enemy heroes increases weakness debuff by an additive 0.25%, stacking up to 10 times. So just to clarify, I'm suggesting that the angel form buff will buff her overall attack speed by 5%. So she attacks overall 5% faster. And the demonic part of the passive will add 5% to the weakness debuff. So I actually adjusted the numbers there, making the highest percentage 15. So it'll take that 15 to 20. The quest for the passive would be after getting 5 kills or assists on enemy heroes and securing 100 last hits, Judgment's angel form buff changes to 1% per stack and demon form buff changes to 0.5%. Clearly this will take her a bit but if she's used in the jungle and ganked often, she will get this done around the time that a carry really starts to get strong, giving her a good power spike and making her a monster when it comes to clearing bosses or diving the enemy backline. So for normal abilities, first up we have Chastise. Serath sweeps her wings in front of her, dealing AoE damage, ability damage, and applying a 25% movement speed slow. Everything here is pretty much the same as it was, but considering the return to basic and ability damage being a separate thing, something's obviously going to have to get tweaked here, because she's not going to get any, if she is building just for basic attacks, which is what you would suggest that she does, considering she's a carry, maybe those numbers might need to be tweaked here, because they're not going to be scaling, because you won't be adding ability damage. Or maybe you will, I don't know, have fun with it. The quest for Chastise would be after hitting X amount of enemy heroes with Chastise, slow debuff is increased to 30% and cooldown is decreased to 10 seconds. Not sure about the number here. It's going to have to be quite large. I don't know, 20 to 30 might be okay, I guess. I'm not sure. But moving on, next up we have Heaven's Fury. Serath hovers in place and hits enemies in a targeted area with a ghostly slash. Enemies are attacked one at a time with a 0.2 second delay for 100% of Serath's basic damage, with a 60% chance to crit. This is a little bit different to the way that it works before. I'm pretty the time is exactly the same. I'm pretty sure though the way that it works was you just did double damage. I could be completely wrong. So it's slightly different, obviously in regards to having crit. But I felt it made it easy to create a balanced quest, adding that 60% crit chance, not 60% Chris chance. I'm Chris. That's crit. So the quest would read, every 3 enemies attacked by Heaven's Fury increases the crit chance by 1%, capping at 40. So that extra 40% will take you to 100%. So by getting this quest done, you're guaranteeing that your Heaven's Fury will crit every single time. Next up is Ascend. Everything is exactly the same here. I thought about having a range buff for the quest, but honestly I'm not sure how possible that would actually be. So I decided to go with after dealing damage to 20 enemies with Ascend, the cooldown is reduced to 8 seconds. I think, taking a third of the cooldown off of that makes it a pretty strong quest that balances well with the other one. So we have 3 standard abilities that pretty much haven't changed, but via the 3 quests you have a choice of improved soft CC by increasing the slow debuff on Chastise. You have bonus damage on the Heaven's Fury quest line, and then you have cooldown reduction on Ascend, which is increasing your mobility. So you're choosing between increasing your CC, your bonus damage, or your mobility, which I think with some number tweaking could actually end up being very, very well balanced. So finally we have our ultimate. Only one change here, I reduced the weakness from 10, 15, and 20 to 5, 10, and 15. That way, with her passive, you can actually stack it up to 20 to take it back to where it was, and upon completing your quest, can actually stack it up further to put it up at 25%, provided you are getting those successive attacks on people, which will actually make it a little bit stronger, but like I said, you have to get successive attacks, and by that I mean think along the lines of Chimera keeping his health regen up. but it's 3 seconds, obviously. So it's going to be very easy to keep that up. But you can't just, run around and turn to someone else and reduce their damage by 25%. So I think it's pretty balanced. Hasn't changed much. But I think it would make her kind of interesting. And I think that each of those 3 quests that you're choosing from on her basic abilities would be worthwhile and balanced. And definitely, there would be occasions where picking up that bonus mobility from Ascend's questline would actually be very, very worthwhile. There's a lot of things to choose from there that increase your ability to counter the enemy team. So that's it for Serath. I would love to hear your feedback. So if you have any suggestions on tweaking what I have, or you disagree with anything that I've said, I would love to hear why and what that is in the comments section down below. So drop me a comment. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and consider subscribing for more content. With that said, thank you so much for watching. I love your face, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.